Marcus Carter had always believed that respect was something you earn through action, through showing up, working hard, and treating people right. His mother used to say, "The world won't always be fair, baby, but you make sure you are." Those words echoed in his mind the morning he walked toward Grandview Bank, a folder tucked under his arm, hope and excitement pushing him forward. The late summer sun warmed the pavement as he approached the glass doors. His reflection stared back at him, a tall black man in a neatly pressed work shirt, jeans clean from the morning but worn from years of building things with his hands. He brushed imaginary dust off his sleeves and gave himself a small nod. Today mattered. His tech repair shop, Fix Right Electronics, had grown faster than he ever imagined. What started as repairing cracked phone screens on his apartment balcony had turned into a full storefront with loyal customers and daily lines. People trusted him because he never cut corners. He did things right, even when it took longer. But now he needed more space, more tools, and a small team. And that meant one thing: a business expansion loan. So he stepped into the bank with purpose. Inside, the air conditioner hummed softly. Marble floors gleamed. A couple sat filling papers in a waiting area. A man in a suit typed quietly at his desk. And behind the front counter sat a young teller, nails tapping her cell phone as though the rest of the world didn't exist. Marcus approached with a friendly smile and rested his folder gently on the counter. "Good morning. I'm here to speak with someone about a business loan." The teller didn't lift her head. "Appointments only," she said, clicking her tongue as if his voice were an interruption. He glanced behind her at the large sign mounted proudly on the wall. "Walk-ins welcome, we're here for you." "Actually," he said politely, pointing toward the sign, "the board says walk-ins are welcome. I checked online too. I can wait a bit if needed." The teller finally looked up, and the moment her eyes landed on him, something in her expression shifted. Her shoulders stiffened, and she tucked her phone away as if gearing herself into a different mode, one Marcus had seen too many times. "We're not doing walk-ins today," she said curtly. "You need to schedule for another time." "Oh," Marcus replied, still calm. "Then I'll schedule. How about this week?" She shook her head instantly. "We're booked out." "Try another branch." Marcus blinked. "Is there a reason you can't schedule me? I'm a local business owner. I have all my documents ready." Before the teller could reply, a voice cut through the room with sharp disapproval. "Is everything all right here?" A middle-aged man in a tailored gray suit approached, thin tie, slicked back hair, the unmistakable confidence of someone used to being in charge. The name tag read, "Mr. Hollings, branch manager." The teller straightened. "He's asking about a loan." Mr. Hollings gave Marcus a quick, sizing glance, starting at his shoes, then his clothes, then his face. It wasn't curiosity. It was judgment dressed as professionalism. "You're looking for a business loan?" Hollings asked slowly, as though translating Marcus's words in his mind. "Yes, sir," Marcus said. "I own Fix Right Electronics on Lincoln Avenue. I'm planning to expand." Hollings clasped his hands behind his back. "Sir, loans of that size are usually handled for established clients. We typically work with businesses with long-standing financial ties to our institution." Marcus narrowed his eyes slightly. "Well, I'm hoping to become one of those clients." "Everyone starts somewhere." Hollings gave a tight, uncomfortable smile, the kind that masked condescension under politeness. "Of course," he said, "but this might not be the right place for you. You may have better luck at a community credit union, something more suited to your needs." Marcus felt the sting not from the words themselves, but the tone behind them. Something more suited to your needs. Something not here. Something not this level. He spoke carefully. "I'm fully prepared. I have revenue statements, tax documents, a business plan." "Sir," Hollings interrupted, raising a hand, I'm trying to save you time. We can't process your loan request today. Please try somewhere else. The words hit harder than they should have. Marcus had been disrespected before, dismissed before, but today it burned. He wasn't asking for charity. He wasn't asking for favors. He was asking for the same opportunity dozens of customers received every week when they walked through these doors wearing fancier clothes or carrying wealthier names. The teller had already returned to scrolling her phone, signaling the conversation was over. Marcus stood there for a moment, feeling the weight of the room press against him, the marble floors, the cold AC, the engraved plaques boasting integrity, service, community. He gathered his folder calmly and said, "Thank you for your time." Then he turned around and walked out. But as he stepped back into the sunlight, the humiliation settled into something sharper, stronger, a flame rising in his chest. If they didn't want to serve him, they would learn to answer to him. And just like that, his humiliation transformed into a quiet, fierce determination that would soon change everything. Marcus didn't go straight home after leaving Grandview Bank. He drove to the nearby community park instead, a quiet place where he often cleared his mind when life got too loud. The sun was beginning to dip, warming the sky with streaks of orange and gold. Children laughed on the playground, birds hopped across the grass, and a soft breeze rustled the leaves overhead. But inside Marcus, there was no calm. He sat on a bench, elbows on his knees, hands clasped, replaying the scene in his mind, the teller's dismissive tone, the manager's quick judgment, the feeling of being small in a room where he had every right to stand tall. He knew disrespect when he saw it. He had felt it enough times growing up. Teachers assuming he wasn't trying hard enough. Neighbors clutching their bags when he walked past. Job interviewers asking if he'd be a good fit. But he had worked his whole life to rise above those assumptions. He thought he'd outrun them. Yet here they were again. He opened the folder he carried with him. Inside were neatly printed revenue charts, a strong 6-month projection, and testimonials from customers who trusted him with their most valuable devices. Everything he needed to get a loan. Everything he had earned. So why did it feel like none of it mattered the moment he stepped inside that bank? His phone buzzed in his pocket, snapping him out of his thoughts. He pulled it out and saw the caller ID, Ethan Myers, one of the tech investors he had met 6 months earlier at a small business expo. Marcus had shown him a prototype of a circuit board he designed, a compact, heat-efficient piece that could boost battery life in older devices. Ethan had been impressed, even excited, but Marcus hadn't expected much to come of it. He answered the call. "Hey, Ethan." "Marcus." Ethan's voice boomed through the speaker, cheerful and energized. "I've been trying to reach you. I've got great news." Marcus sat up a little. "Yeah? What's up? You remember your microcircuit prototype?" Ethan continued. "Well, I showed it to my partners, and they're extremely interested. They think there's real commercial potential, much bigger than we initially realized." A small smile tugged at the corner of Marcus's mouth. "That's good to hear." "Good." Ethan laughed. "It's incredible. Listen, we want to back your next move. Whether that's scaling your shop, launching production, or even starting a new company entirely. Whatever you want to do, you've got our support." Marcus's chest tightened, not with fear, but with possibility. "Whatever I want to do," he repeated quietly. "Anything," Ethan confirmed. "You've earned it. You're sharp, reliable, and your work speaks for itself. Just tell us your vision." Marcus leaned back against the bench and looked up at the evening sky. The idea came slowly at first, like the faint outline of a distant shape. But as the seconds passed, it sharpened, brightened, solidified. He thought of the bank manager's smirk. The teller waving him away. The invisible wall he ran into the moment he walked through those glass doors. He didn't want a loan anymore. He didn't want their approval. He didn't want their permission. He wanted something bigger. Something that would make sure no one else was ever treated the way he was. "Marcus," Ethan said. "You still there?" Marcus inhaled deeply. "Yeah. I'm here. So? What do you want to do next?" Marcus closed his eyes for a moment. The idea swelled inside him, audacious, bold, maybe even reckless to some. But to him, it felt right. It felt necessary. "I want to build something they can't ignore," Marcus said slowly. "Something that changes the way people like me are treated." "I'm listening," Ethan said. "You ever think about," Marcus continued, choosing his words carefully, "owning a financial institution?" There was a long pause on the other end. Not a confused pause, but a stunned one. A moment of silent calculation. "You mean, like a bank?" Ethan asked. "Yes." Marcus didn't hesitate this time. "A bank?" Ethan exhaled, a mix of disbelief and intrigue. "Well, that's not exactly small. That's absolutely massive." "But Marcus, why a bank?" Marcus stared at the folder in his lap, at the dream he had walked into Grandview Bank carrying like an offering, only to have it thrown aside without consideration. "Because today," he said quietly, "I walked into a bank asking for a loan, and they treated me like I didn't belong. Not because my business wasn't good. Not because my plan wasn't solid. But because of who they thought I was." He paused, letting the truth settle. "I don't want to ask for a seat at the table anymore. I want to own the whole table." Ethan didn't laugh. He didn't dismiss it. Instead, he said the one thing Marcus didn't expect. "Okay. Then let's explore it." "You're serious?" Marcus asked. "Absolutely," Ethan replied. "If anyone can pull this off, it's you. Start doing your research. Figure out what you'd need. We'll back you." The call ended, but the fire inside Marcus didn't. He sat on the bench long after the sun had dipped below the horizon, long after the park had emptied, long after the sky had faded into deep blue. His mind raced, connecting pieces he hadn't even realized he had collected over the years: his business skills, his tech expertise, his growing network, his relentless drive. A vision took shape. No more begging banks for help. No more walking into buildings where respect was optional. No more ceilings imposed by someone who couldn't see past his appearance. If they didn't want to serve him as a customer, they would soon serve him as their boss. And so the impossible dream began. The next morning, Marcus woke up with a purpose he hadn't felt in years. It wasn't anger anymore. It was clarity, sharp, steady, and unstoppable. He sat at his kitchen table with a notebook, coffee steaming beside him, and wrote one sentence at the top of the page. "If they won't open the door for me, I'll walk in through the owner's entrance." But owning a bank wasn't like opening a corner shop. It was complex, regulated, and intimidating by design. Most people didn't even understand how banks were owned. They assumed they were monolithic institutions controlled by untouchable elites. Marcus wasn't most people. He spent the first week diving into banking laws, acquisition rules, shareholder structures, and financial licensing. He filled page after page of notes, diagrams, arrows, question marks. It was overwhelming at first, but Marcus had always been wired for problem solving. It was the same mindset he used when staring at a broken circuit board: break it down, understand every piece, then build it better. Every evening, he talked to Ethan and the investor team. They didn't laugh. They didn't doubt him. They asked questions, challenged assumptions, and connected him with advisors, lawyers, analysts, consultants, people who specialized in turning impossible ideas into real strategies. One evening, after hours of reading reports and drinking too much cold coffee, Marcus stumbled across a critical detail. Grandview Bank wasn't privately owned. It was publicly traded. which meant something extraordinary. Anyone could become an owner if they had enough shares. A plan began to form. Not a loud one. Not a dramatic one. A quiet, surgical, strategic takeover. He didn't need to buy the entire bank at once. He just needed to acquire shares slowly, consistently, and intelligently until he gained enough influence to take control. And so the real work began. The first move. Marcus opened an investment account specifically for this mission. Every week, he purchased shares of Grandview Bank, sometimes a handful, sometimes larger batches depending on the market. Ethan and his partners did the same, discreetly and legally. They formed an LLC to centralize their ownership stake. Nothing illegal. Nothing shady. Just smart, patient strategy. Marcus studied the bank's quarterly filings, its board composition, its vulnerabilities. There were cracks, subtle ones in the bank's leadership, missed revenue projections, outdated digital systems, customer complaints. Grandview Bank looked polished on the outside, but it was lagging behind competitors. He knew, deep down, it needed someone like him. 6 months later. One chilly morning, Marcus walked into Fix-Right Electronics early, before his employees arrived. He set his coffee on the counter and checked his email. His breath caught in his throat. A message from Ethan flashed at the top of his inbox. Congratulations. We crossed the threshold. You're now the majority shareholder of Grandview Bank. Marcus stared at the screen, heart pounding. After months of discipline, study, and quiet accumulation, he had done it. He had just become the majority owner of the same bank that wouldn't let him through the door. He leaned back in his chair and exhaled a slow, disbelieving breath. His hands shook not from fear, but from the weight of what he had just accomplished. He didn't celebrate. Not yet. There was one more thing he needed to do. Return to the bank. 2 days later, wearing the same type of clean work shirt and jeans he had worn on the day they rejected him, Marcus walked toward the glass doors of Grandview Bank. His stride was calm, but there was a gravity behind each step. Customers moved in and out. Cars passed by. The day looked ordinary. But for Marcus, nothing about this moment was ordinary. Inside, the teller who had dismissed him months earlier sat at her station. She looked up, recognized him, and her face tightened. This time, she didn't reach for her phone. "Can I help you?" she asked cautiously. "Yes," Marcus said. "I'm here to see the manager." Before she could respond, the office door opened and Mr. Hollings stepped out. He froze mid-step when he saw Marcus. "You," Hollings said stiffly. "Sir, if this is about your loan, I already told." Marcus held up a hand. "This isn't about a loan." Hollings swallowed. "Then may I ask why you're here?" Marcus reached into his folder and pulled out a single envelope. "Because as of this week," he said evenly, "I am the new majority owner of Grandview Bank." The room fell silent. The teller blinked rapidly. A customer turned to stare. Hollings's face lost all color. I'm sorry, what?" he stammered. "You heard me," Marcus said, laying the letter of confirmation gently on the counter. "I now hold controlling interest in this institution. Effective immediately, I'll be implementing changes starting with staff training on customer respect." Hollings opened the envelope with trembling hands. When he saw the official documents and signatures, his knees nearly buckled. Marcus didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He simply said, "People deserve better than the way you treated me. And starting today, they'll get it." The dawn of change. As he walked through the bank now, his bank employees whispered. Some straightened their posture. Others looked humbled. Marcus felt none of the bitterness he once carried. He felt purpose. Because the real victory wasn't ownership. It was transformation. And the transformation had just begun. The first week after taking control of Grandview Bank was a whirlwind. Marcus moved through the halls with quiet authority, reviewing operations, meeting employees, and listening. He noticed everything: the tone of the tellers when they greeted customers, the lines of paperwork that could be streamlined, the outdated software that frustrated clients and staff alike. He didn't just see numbers and policies, he saw people: staff, customers, even the security guard who had shrugged off complaints for years. But the most important thing Marcus wanted to change wasn't found in spreadsheets or financial reports. It was respect. He called a meeting with every employee, from the tellers to the branch manager to the assistants who worked quietly behind the scenes. The conference room was tense, filled with curious, apprehensive faces. Some people whispered, others stared at the floor. They had all heard the news. Most of them had no idea what to expect from a new majority owner. Marcus walked in calmly. He didn't slam a hand on the table. He didn't shout or threaten. He simply looked at the room, letting his presence settle over them. Then he began. "Good morning," he said. His voice was steady. "I want to start by saying something simple. This bank is now under new leadership. And under my leadership, there's one rule above all else: respect. Every customer, every employee, every visitor, you will treat them with dignity. No exceptions. No excuses." The room shifted. A few eyes widened, some employees exchanged hesitant glances. Marcus continued. "I've walked through these doors before, carrying hope and hard work, only to be dismissed because of who I am. That was not just unfair. It was wrong. And it will never happen again." He paused. His gaze met Mr. Hollings's, the man who had once told him he wasn't welcome. The manager looked down, ashamed, but attentive. Marcus didn't speak angrily. He didn't relish the moment. He spoke with the weight of someone who had transformed anger into purpose. "This bank is more than buildings, computers, or money. It's people. It's communities. And we serve those communities best when every person who walks in feels welcome, valued, and respected." Marcus had been in the room for nearly 10 minutes when he finally shifted tone. "I want this bank to grow. Not just in profit, but in reputation. Not just in size, but in character. And that begins with every single one of you." A long silence followed. Then one teller raised her hand tentatively. "Sir, how do you want us to implement that? I mean, the policies and everything." Marcus smiled gently. "We start with training. Listening to our customers. Understanding their needs. And most importantly, treating them like they matter. Not like they're just another transaction." Over the next few weeks, Marcus implemented sweeping changes. He invested in customer service training, digital upgrades, and community outreach programs. Employees who were initially skeptical began to see the results. Complaints dropped. Customers left with smiles. And Marcus walked the floor daily, observing, correcting, mentoring. He didn't micromanage, but he held everyone accountable. Then came the day he returned to the counter where it had all begun. The teller who had refused him months ago looked up as he approached. Marcus placed a folder on the counter: policies for customer interaction and staff support. "Here," he said simply. "This is the way we do things now." The teller nodded, a mixture of relief and respect in her eyes. "Yes, sir," she said. "I understand." Marcus smiled and walked on. But in his heart, he knew the real victory wasn't in seeing her acknowledge him. It was in knowing that no one else would have to experience the dismissal he had faced. No one would have to be turned away simply because someone assumed they didn't belong. Outside the bank, the sun was setting, casting a warm glow on the city streets. Marcus paused, looking at the sign above the entrance. "Walk-ins welcome." It had always been there, But now it meant something different. Now it was a promise. A commitment. A reflection of the change Marcus had worked for, bled for, and finally achieved. And as he walked back to his car, Marcus felt a sense of completion he hadn't expected. Owning the bank was one thing, yes, but changing the culture, shaping the environment, leaving a legacy of respect and fairness, that was the true reward. He thought of the countless people who had been dismissed, overlooked, or underestimated in their own lives. He thought of his mother's words, "The world won't always be fair, baby, but you make sure you are." He had made the world fairer, in his own way. One small institution at a time. One person at a time. And for Marcus, that was just the beginning. Because when you turn humiliation into determination, obstacles into opportunities, and injustice into action, you don't just change your own life, you change the lives of everyone around you.